Hi, welcome to the Universe of Business and Life. I'm your host, Barb Patterson. Today I'm joined by Kristy Halvorsen, author of Perfect Unfolding, who describes herself as a nomadic world traveler, explorer, mentor, and coach. Kristy has spent the last 8 years living on the road in her Airstream, following what she calls the tickles of her soul and letting life lead her in surprising and beautiful ways. I really appreciated and love this conversation because, as she shares with a lot of heart, a lot of depth, a lot of authenticity, what you're going to see is that her story isn't really about the Airstream or the travel, but more about an awakening. It's about learning to trust the unknown, letting old fear, aloneness fall away, and discovering a deeper sense of connection, love, and inner guidance. In our conversation, she speaks so openly about what it means to surrender to life, to follow those nudges that don't always make logical sense and can be bring up a lot of fear or insecurity. But one of the things that she discovered in a really beautiful and powerful way is how supported she actually is. So if you've ever felt that tug, if you've ever felt the desire to step into something new or sensed a quiet inner pull to try something, to move in a certain direction, I think you're going to resonate with this conversation. As always, thank you for being here. And if you know anyone that would benefit from this conversation, please share it with them. And now here's Kristy. Kristy, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for the invite to be here. I'm so excited to see where we'll go.
I know. And for those listening that can't see, and maybe even for those that are on YouTube, Kristy is inside her Airstream, which is going to be a key character or a part of our conversation today. So I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. Kristy, I want to just dive in and, your book is going to be kind of central to what frames our conversation today. But I know based on who you are and all the amazing things you have to say, we'll also trust wherever the conversation wants to take us. But your book, Perfect Unfolding, I just want to start by saying what a lovely experience it was to read it. The heart, the vulnerability, the authenticity, but also I was like on your adventures with you too. And I shared with you, I'm a bit of a wanderer myself. I love to travel. I've lived a lot of different places, but I think that experience just does so much for us. And what I love about your book is not only do you share some of that and some of the key characters and people and places that you go, but your inner journey throughout this whole book, I think, is just really beautiful and I think relatable on so many levels to us. So I wanted to just start by asking you, if you could distill Perfect Unfolding into like one invitation, one core invitation for the reader, what would it be?
I guess the simplest way I could say it is, whether we're really happy with our life or we wish it were different, pretty much everyone is up for being surprised and living a life that's more incredible than our wildest dreams. Like most of us would not say no to that.
Yeah, I'm in. Yeah.
And you're right, this book is a beautiful journey. It's a physical journey. But I think the most important part is it takes the reader on this transformative journey and gives us all permission to live the life that's really calling us.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. And it's like really very early on, you discover that you're going to be able to see kind of the, parts of the world through your eyes and that piece. But also, I think very early on, you realize there's something else available in the reading of this. And I think I might have this wrong. I'm paraphrasing, but it really becomes a book about love. It becomes a book about awakening. It becomes a book about letting go and surrender. And so I'm really excited to explore all those themes with you.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what the book's about.
Yeah.
And just by chance, you get to come on a grand adventure with me, through the US and Canada. But what you just said about surrender and love and acceptance and awakening, like, that is truly what this book is about. And that's why it will relate with anyone. It doesn't matter if you dislike traveling or don't care
Yeah.
about that kind of thing. It truly, from what I've seen so far and the people that have read it, it stirs something inside of everyone. And what's fun is it stirs something different inside of everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that fits for me too. And I think there were so many things in there whether and we can talk a little bit about it, but like that aloneness, the shift and the aha you had around that. But also, I think um, it can look like the travel or being in the Airstream or going to these great locations is sort of the point. But I think what it illustrates, it's what it wakes up in us. And I think that's true for all of us, whether our adventure is relationship or parenting or a new job or being your own solopreneur or a new something you want to create, whether it's a book or a program, that becomes our metaphor, our opportunity, I think, to wake up to more of what's true for us as well.
Yes, definitely. And that's what I love to share with people is you don't have to do a certain thing a certain way.
Yeah.
You just follow the path that's calling to you. And whatever the path that is, all those things you just named and more. And when we're all in, life shows us what we need to see next. And
Yeah.
sometimes we bang up against our sticky spots and it's not comfortable at all. But honestly, a lot of those times, provide for the biggest aha moments too. So, but yeah, you can
Yeah.
do anything you want. We're all in our individual journeys, but to me, it's not so much about the doing what we're actually doing, although that's fun. It's more about who we're
Yeah.
becoming through that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk, first you started to speak in the book about kind of this idea of aloneness.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something I know I have felt in my life at times. I think probably most people have, whether you're in a group, you can still feel alone or you're actually alone. And talk about why that was important for you to bring into the book and into the conversation.
Well, for a lot of my life, I always had kind of, the closer friends, and I did well in very small groups, but I wasn't a big social butterfly, and I kind of stuck to myself and being alone a lot. And I share how a lot of that stems back to some childhood experiences when I made a promise to myself, that I didn't want to love anyone and so much that it would hurt if they left.
Mm.
And that was when I was 13, and it shaped the rest of my life. Well, not the rest of it. It shaped a good 2 or 3 decades of it. And, and this book, you know yeah, I've been on the road now for 8 years, and that to me is the biggest journey of my journey is letting go of all the ideas I had about love and how I could love and couldn't love and who loved me and really playing with experiencing all the emotions. But
Mhm.
aloneness was a real big one because when I hit the road, it was with my previous boyfriend.
Mm.
It was supposed to be. That was our plan, and I didn't wanna do this journey alone. And thankfully, my mom, slapped me in a really loving way and said, "What are you thinking? You can do this alone."
Yeah.
And that's where the book begins. And so this journey of traveling and meeting all these people and seeing myself in a different way and seeing truths about life, the biggest part of that has been, like, realizing that I'm never alone, ever.
Mm.
None of us are.
Mhm.
None of us are. And it was a really, really tough first year. My first year was miserable. In fact, if I could have taken it all back and got my house back and my job back and everything back and given the Airstream to someone else, I would have in an instant taken my old life back. but I'm so glad that that was pretty much impossible because it forced me just to say, "Psh, I chose this, I gotta roll with it." And then through this journey is when I really saw that there's no such thing as being alone.
So why I'd love to hear, can you give a little bit more context? Why was it so hard that first year? What was it?
Well, because, I was fighting what was happening, and what was happening was I was on this incredible journey by myself, and most of that first year was the regret that I was never supposed to be by myself. Like,
Mm,
in the book Wade, I mentioned Wade in the book.
yep,
He and I were supposed to do this journey together, and we'd
yep,
been planning it for years, and so I was fighting what actually was happening, and and then, yeah, I think a big part of it was I didn't understand who I was,
mm,
so even if Wade had never existed and this was my own journey and I was happy on my own, I think I probably still would have been pretty unhappy because
yeah,
I didn't get the truth of who we are and who I am. Like, I didn't have the understanding to know how connected we all are, and, I used to think of relationships as like, "Oh, I've got these really close friendships that are," I've known them for 10, 20 years, and they're really important, but the person I meet today on the trail or in the grocery store, you know, that's just a baby relationship, and that's not the same. I can
yeah,
still be friends with them and be alone. But incredibly, during this journey, very early on, I started to see that none of that matters and connection is inherent. And
yeah.
I can sit and have this, like, unexplainable love and deep connection with someone I just met today, and yeah.
And
So,
what's the moment that you saw that your suffering was coming from just still being upset about the fact that it didn't look the way you thought it was going to? Like what helped that sort of begin to fall away?
it was the first thing that comes to mind was it was 2018 and I was in New Mexico. And I was in the national forest, which that's another thing, your listeners might enjoy hearing is I don't like campgrounds. So I'm living in an Airstream, but I wanna live off grid in nature away from most everything. And I feel really at home in nature.
Mm,
So I was in this national forest and there weren't many people. People would come and go, but I made really strong connections with the few sprinklings of people that were in the area. And, and yeah, that's when I first started to see how deep of a connection we can have with
mm,
anyone and it not, quote, "take any time at all."
yeah.
And then I had this experience with a raven, and I barely mentioned it in the book, but I stepped outside of my trailer in New Mexico, and it was just so silent, there was no wind, and the sun was just barely coming up over the mountains, and I heard the sound of wings, like, just whoosh, whoosh, and I was looking to see where it was coming from, and then this raven flew right over my head. And I've never had an experience like this. In fact, if I didn't have it myself, I probably would have been like, "That stuff doesn't happen in real life." It was still a little woo woo. But when the raven flew over my head, I felt this message, like, literally felt this message. It's almost like I heard it
Mm,
without without a voice, and it said, "You're on this journey to learn to say goodbye." And the reason that had so much meaning was because right at that time, I was really connecting with people deeply, and then either I'd leave or they'd leave. And so it was like I was getting over this idea of that I'm alone, and then I was having this 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 sadness over continually leaving the people I meet and get close with. And when that the raven fell over and I felt this message drop, I turned around and it flew towards a bunch of mountains that were black because the sun had just come over the mountains, but its wings just reflected gold from the sun.
um,
And then it dipped below the mountains and just disappeared into the black. And I had just the night before met a Native American man who was like a quarter mile away. And I didn't know what the bird was. I was thinking, I think it's a raven, it's a crow, I don't know. So I jumped on my bike and rode to this man's camping area. And he was like, "What are you doing up so early? Come sit by the fire." And I sat down and all I did was ask, "What are those big black birds?" and he just spoke for about half an hour. "Oh, that's the raven," and he had a big tattoo of a raven's feather on his leg. And he just went on and on and on about ravens and their and what they mean in the Native American, spiritual world, and how they're messengers from above. He said, they're pretty much equivalent to angels, and they give messages to special members of the tribe, and it was really incredible, and they're agents of transformation, and he just went on and on. Like I said, it was like probably 20 to 30-minute monologue. I just sat there in awe and listened. And then he asked, "Why did you come over here so early this morning?" And then I told him about the experience I had just had, and he goes, "Oh, you see," you know? And I
Yeah,
I just got chills again hearing that,
that's
hearing myself say
amazing.
that. But but yeah, and then we talked about the meaning of what I had heard, and
Yeah,
and and I really thought it applied to my mom because she had been sick for many years, and
yeah.
I was scared to leave. She's in Florida. I was scared to go west because I was like, what if something happens?" And I and earl this was early on, like I said, this was in the first 6 months of my journey, talking to this Native American elder, and, we just talked about what it means to say goodbye and what it means to be connected, and how there's no really goodbyes, and that's kind of, I feel, what the raven was saying. You're on this journey to learn to say goodbye, but I feel like it was, like, in such a gentle way that there actually is never a true goodbye, if that makes any
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and so
Yeah,
I could say that was when the aloneness first started really falling away.
yeah. And as the aloneness fell away, what it sounds like what started to be more felt in your experience was the connection. Was
Yeah.
there anything else you noticed as the aloneness fell away?
Well, I can say the aloneness really fell away almost exactly a year after that experience in New Mexico, and, and and I just had a big aha, like a massive wow, saw life completely differently, and and what I realized was that we're it's impossible. We're not alone. We're connected to everything. Like, we are literally, the body of the universe, all of us. And it's and I felt strange telling people this because I it's kinda like within a day or 2 of having this big aha, I was like, "I'm gonna never feel lonely again, ever. I won't. It's impossible." And I was embarrassed to say it because I didn't know if it was true. And
Mm,
then within a few years, I was just like, "No, I'm okay telling people about this because it's as true can be." And I truly feel like I'll it's impossible to feel loneliness ever again, and I haven't in what's been over 6 years now, and I can't imagine ever feeling lonely because it's not who we are,
yeah,
you know? Does that
yeah.
I don't even know if that answered your question.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so, do you feel like as you had that realization and the crow and kind of the meeting of the people, um, as you started to just this is my interpretation of it, right? But as you
Yeah.
started to just relax into surrender into the journey more and more, what were you using? Like, I know you talk in the book about nudges
Mhm.
and, that idea of what did you call them? I want to
Tickles
say
of my soul.
tickles. Thank you. I wanted to say tingles. And I'm like, I don't think that's, that's right.
Yeah.
So, like, was that a new awareness to you, or had you always sort of had that and it just became more prevalent? Like, was that your GPS? Was that the
Yeah. You know,
literally? Yeah.
I'm glad you asked that because 'cause I've been a different bird my whole life, but the fall I used to call it following my heart. That's what I called it pretty much since my 20s onward. And so, at the age of 24, I had a big decision that everybody thought was a bad idea except for me and one uncle. Other than that, the whole world, everybody I knew was like, that's a bad idea." And my heart said go, and so I went. I did it. And it was and I tell people that was the best decision of my life because at 23 or 24, I realized I can trust that. I can trust that knowing. I can trust my heart. That
Yeah.
even when my brain is like, "You're nuts," and everybody else says that too, I can really trust it. And so ever since then, since my early 20s, I've been really up to following my heart. And
Mm.
when I set off on this journey, when, like I said, I was by myself and I'm like, what am I doing? But I feel really, really drawn to do this. It was an experiment. I was like, okay, it seems to me that I can just follow these tickles of my soul and not even have a clue where I'm going to sleep tonight. No, have no idea where I'm actually going and just wander and be open to anything. And everything's going to be okay. And so when I set off in 2017, that was the like, is this possible? Can I live like this? And the more I lived like that, in the beginning, I just thought it related to travel. And
Mhm.
then the more I lived like that, and the more it kind of bled into every area of my life, I really realized that no, this relates to everything. Like all the shoulds and needs tos and expectations, like as much as possible, you can just let that all go and listen to this, what I call the tickles of my soul, and things will turn out in most usually better than I ever could have imagined on my own. So to me, when I started, I was like like I was a junior varsity coddywampler. And
Yeah.
coddywampling is just living in this way with living
Yeah.
by your inner knowing. So I was like a junior varsity coddywampler, and the journey has taken me to, the best coddywamplers in the world are little kids, and so they're
Yeah.
they're the highest order of coddywampling. But I'm slowly working my way back to that, but I feel like, that's what really changed my life is being able to live by those tickles of my soul, by just what I know
Mm.
to do without any expectations of what might happen.
Yeah. And so in a, like, real world way, how did that show up for you? Literally, it sounds like where you would decide to go.
Yeah.
But how else over these last few years has following that tickle, like, what has it shown you?
I mean, just things that could never have happened if I listened to my brain. You know?
Yeah.
Like, there's been so many times, like, there's so many stories I can share of I really thought I knew what I was gonna do that day, and then an opportunity showed itself, an invitation
Yeah.
came from somewhere, someone, and then I was like, "Oh, but I had plans, but I was
Yeah.
going to do my taxes, but I was going to" you name it. And then I was like, "Well, that's a should. Okay, I guess I'm not gonna do that, and I'll go do the other thing." So, like,
Yeah.
a real world example that's playing out as we speak is, um, it was actually in the journey. It was just a tiny little mention in the book. It was like a one-line mention of me coming through Boston, and I mentioned, "The last 3 nights, I've slept in 3 different beds and had meals at 5 different houses," and in fact, I stopped at a friend's place and went to a Rugby World Cup party, and who would have thought that was gonna happen? And if you were in a real world example, it was a friend of mine that I'd only known on Zoom had said, "If you ever come through Boston, let me know." And so I
Hmm.
let him know I'm coming through the Boston area, and he said, "We're having a big party tomorrow. South Africa's in the Rugby World Cup, and come over." And I had plans, and it was work plans.
Yeah.
But I was like, "Oof, I better just cancel those and go to the party." And I went, and I just met some incredible people. And little would I know that, this year, and that was a few years ago, like the people I met at the party have become major players in my life.
Mm.
And had I chosen to do work that day and not
Yeah.
go, some incredible things that are happening right now. Like I'm with a group of people, we're creating a regenerative farm and nature-based retreat center in New Hampshire.
Oh, beautiful.
And that my connection there came from that rugby party. And I'm actually considering settling. I don't like no, there's nothing like 100% sure yet, but there's a
Yeah.
possibility that New Hampshire might become my home base, my first true home base in 8 years, and it might actually be home. Like I might stop
Yeah.
wandering in Cody other than just for holidays. I don't
Yeah.
know. But the fact that that one Saturday, I had no clue and it didn't unfold until years later
Yeah.
just shows me what is possible when we truly follow what is pulling us? And I was nudged to go to this party even though I had responsibilities.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
canceled my responsibilities in a really responsible way and went to the party anyways, and look what
Yeah.
happened. 'Cause
Yeah.
so it's that too. That's the cottywumple. That's the tickles of my soul, you know?
Yeah. It's a great story because I think that's true. I think so often we override those promptings or nudges or what we really would like to be doing because of, our to-do list or the thing we should be doing or, all those things. And yet, um, when we build up our capacity to hear it, to hear those nudges, to feel them, and then follow through, I think you're right. I think we're often really surprised. And part of the thing I think that you speak to in the book, but also you're kind of speaking to right now is that so often when we feel a nudge or a prompting, like the mind is like goes, 20 steps ahead and is like, why? What's this going to do for us? And what if that doesn't work? And what, it's like starts to get ahead and try and work everything out. And if logically there's not a good reason or there's a scary what if scenario, we don't move.
Yeah.
And at one point in the book, you talk about the unknown being your drug of choice or something like that, right?
Yes.
But really, what you're saying is letting the tickles be your guide, letting you be available for opportunities that come in a day and seeing and listening, saying, is that a yes or a no? Like, it does require a living in the unknown more in a more conscious way, I guess, because, we could argue we're always in the unknown, but let's not do that. So I'm just curious, like, what do you see around that piece?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and there's no need to argue anything because 'cause I'm like,
Yeah.
we're always in the unknown, we just don't know it, we just
Yeah. Yeah.
don't realize it. We think everything's planned out and we know what's gonna happen. But I love how you just said that. I think you used the word consciously, like more consciously in the unknown. And I
Yeah.
think that's that's what I've, honed the skill of.
Yeah.
It's really consciously being like, I have no clue what's gonna happen. Even the things I think I know, like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And when when we live like this with the caveat that everything that's happening in all of life, even when it doesn't feel nice, is the perfect unfolding of everything, then what's so scary about the unknown? Like, there's really truly nothing to be afraid of, and yeah, and I think that's the main cusp of where I'm at is just if we can see the unknown as a really awesome surprise and not
Yeah.
some scary thing we have to fight against, it completely like, for me, it completely changed how I was being in all parts of my life. 'Cause then I was just free to live. I wasn't stuck in worry, and I wasn't stuck in regret, and that was the other thing in my big aha when aloneness vanished, when feeling alone and lonely vanished. That same day, all regret and worry vanished at the same time. And
Mm.
the only time I regret or worry now is when I forget, and everybody forgets, like, it's a given, we all forget. So I'll have this moment where I'm worrying, and then there'll be it's usually rather quickly, when I'm like, "What am I thinking?" And I don't have to try to stop worrying, I just have to remember the truth, and then the worry goes away, and to me, the truth is, like, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen, and I can be fully present and a part of that in a beautiful, divine way, or I can sit here and worry and fear and make stuff up about what could possibly go wrong. And I
Yeah.
just to me, it's not anything I have to try, it just doesn't make sense anymore. Like, worry just doesn't make sense at all to do. It's like, why would I torture myself for no reason, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's great. And I think there's this piece around, welcoming the unexpected, like
yeah,
really seeing that it's in the unexpected where fresh opportunities, newness occurs, you know, potential is in the unknown. It cannot be in the known, right? New potential, new expression, new possibility isn't in what we know. It's in that unknown. And so I do think part of what we do is just increase our capacity to be with those unsettled moments when those times when the mind does, get carried away in a future scenario or worry, that we don't have to control all that to be able to move forward, to be able to keep going. It's just all a natural part of our humanness is that full range of the human experience. And I think, one of the things I got onto myself and when I started to see this more and more was like, oh, yeah, like, I'm creating a world that's pretty narrow if I only wanna do things that make me feel a certain way. And I never wanna do anything that makes me feel uncomfortable or insecure
Yeah.
or awkward. It's like I'm gonna limit what I'm available for. So I think it's a really empowering place for people to really, like, reflect for themselves. Like, what if I knew I could handle it? I'm made for it. Like, I'm okay. That peace, resilience, all of my okayness is inherent. And the wobbles that come by taking risk, by following the tingle or our heart, like those are temporary. And a new life, or, that thing we crave or hope for is often on the other side of those things.
Oh, yeah. And I love that you mentioned that because that's to me, that's a huge part of living in this space of the beautiful unknown. It's gonna be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, it's like we've been hardwired and taught that the known is where it's at and we're safe there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in order to be really cool with, like, living in the unknown and welcoming the unknown, you've gotta get really comfortable with being uncomfortable sometimes,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, you know, fear isn't a problem. More often than not, it's our when we're afraid of being afraid that is, you know? And so it's like if we can just say, "Well, I'm a little scared right now. I'm a little worried," whatever you name it. "I'm a little anxious," whatever word you wanna put around it. "And I know I can do this anyways. I'm just gonna just keep taking my walk." That changes everything, and it's not it's like when we fight it, when we want it to go away, that usually doesn't work out really well for anyone. It's when we're just like you said, welcoming the unknown, it's like welcoming the worry, welcoming the fear, welcoming the uncomfortable feelings, and just saying, "Okay, I'll just do this and feel this way too."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that coming back to that idea of, via that we're more available to some of the miracles, the surprises, the
Yep.
unexpected encounters, we're actually kind of rather than on to the next thing in our head or trying to get through something just to get somewhere else. There's a way your book also, I think, creates this invitation to be available to life. And I think one of the obviously central themes is how all sorts of relationships throughout the book, what it asked of you was to be more available to all of that, right? Including the love and the intimacy. And I wonder if you could speak to that piece.
Yeah, and that's a huge one, it's being with yourself, being with who you're with, and without any ideas or preconceived, reasons to be with them or not to be with them in whatever way you are. And and not be thinking about tomorrow or the next 5 minutes,
Yeah.
just to be there. And it feels to me like those tickle of our soul can only happen in that space, and we don't know, I can speak for myself. I never know when someone comes into my life if it's gonna be for a quick hello or, a friend for a day or 2 that I might never see again or a lifelong partnership. And and I think this goes back to the big aha too about all of us just being so intrinsically connected. And when we approach life that way, and a beautiful human comes across our path and invites us for anything, a conversation, a journey, like, if it's a no, say no, but if it's a yes, like, go for it. And in this part, I feel like one of the things I'm asked the most is, "Aren't you like, how do you keep yourself safe?" Like, people ask me that all the time,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and it was interesting because it wasn't until I was reading like, creating the audiobook that I started realizing, for the most part, a lot of the people I meet on my journey are men.
Yeah.
And I was kinda shocked when I realized that. I'm like, "I'm hanging out with all these strangers who happen to be male," and I think that's what makes a lot of people nervous,
Yeah.
you know, is in our society, we're taught, like, single female, you don't go hang out with men you don't know, you know, that can spell danger. Um, but I just the other thing is not only the tickles of my soul don't not only they tell me the next step to take, like, where I should head, in what direction, but I really am so present that I feel like I can tell when I should go somewhere else, when I shouldn't
Yeah.
hang out with someone.
Yeah.
And in the relationship piece, I feel that's really comfortable, and I'm not saying that's just about men, I'm saying that's about anyone.
Yeah.
Or even the space that I happen to be living in is when we're that present, like, there are times when I do get a little bit of the willies, and
Yeah.
sometimes and there's an instance in the book with a man that kept bringing me fish. Like, he showed up 3 times in one day, and I was like, "Okay, this is strange." And I
Yeah.
kinda shooed him away because my spidey sense started going off saying,
Yeah.
"A single man does not find a woman at 3 different places in the same day," and that I didn't tell him I was going. It started to feel a little freaky. But then I realized when I shooed him off and he left politely, I realized it was just the culture was different. Like, the people in Newfoundland and Labrador are of a whole different breed. They're the most loving, giving people I've ever met in my life. And this man just saw a single woman on her own and was trying to help. But, you know, there's times where like, my radar kinda goes off. But for the that's really, really rare. For the most part, because I'm so, like, in tune with just feeling things out, I can allow myself to connect so deeply with just about anyone. And
Yeah.
sometimes those relationships blossom into things that again, are beyond my wildest dreams.
Yeah. And what has that, like, what's it asked of you? You know, like, what I mean by that is sometimes I believe those inner places where we're curious or we're compelled to go or we start to see things through insight, they're evolving us, like, and I'm curious, like, how the relationship aspects or that availability, that presence evolved you in regard to um, being available in relationship. I don't mean like dating. I just mean those connections as you're talking about. I love that you said your those that tingle, all that like keep in your presence helps you know when to stay, when to go, all of that. But how has it evolved you as in regard to love?
Yeah, and that's been one of my stickiest spots in all of life. And it feels to me that, life just kept sending me angels, like, over and over and over. Like, I used to early in my journey, like 17 and 18, I would say that there's angels everywhere. And
Yeah.
it truly that's what I felt, like, just regular old people would show up in really, like, incredibly special, deep, loving, caring ways. And
Yeah.
it would bring tears to my eyes, like, I'm a stranger and you care this much, you know? And and it helped me open my eyes to
Mm,
really loving and really allowing myself to be loved. And love and loving, it comes in so many different forms, in so many different ways,
yeah.
and it could be something as simple as, you know, like the man that kept checking on me and bringing me fish, and then
Yeah.
Eh, there's also the really special relationship I had with Danielle and Fabian in the book. And that was a couple that I just happened to meet. And strangely enough, I met them, they gave me a fish too. Like, a lot of fish giving going
Yeah, yeah,
in this book. But yeah, like, Danielle and Fabian, they were an older couple traveling pretty much the same journey, the same route I was on. And Fabian didn't even speak English, and Danielle spoke okay English, and I didn't speak any French. and yet our bond went so deep, so quick, so fast,
Mm.
and we are connected the rest of our life, and I think the way that opened me to love, like, all these experiences, is just seeing how simple love is when you just allow and let it happen. When you're not fighting it, when you're not putting crazy ideas and beliefs in the way. Like, that's truly all we are, and when we're living in a space of just feeling that love and peace and contentment, like, more often than not, the people around us feel that, and especially when you run into somebody in those same spaces, you can't help but fall in love with each other, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to think that when I was a child, I thought love could hurt me. Like, that was the real reason I made that promise.
Yeah.
And through this journey, through all these years and all the angels that have, like, fallen into my life, I've realized that there's no way love could ever hurt anyone. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And, I think it's, um that piece of realizing that it's worth moving into that, like the journey for all of us that is called forth to move in that direction so we can be available to that kind of presence and love and those people and our own strength, I think is just such a beautiful part of what your book invites people to. And, I'm curious, towards the end of the book, you speak directly to the reader about trusting a lot of what we're talking about, trust that it's all, regardless of ups, downs, pain, no pain, there's a perfect unfolding. But what would you say to someone who right now feels that tug, whether it's in a relationship or in a direction of career or life or making a transition? They're not going to sell their house and go on the road for 8 years,
Yeah.
or maybe they are, maybe they are, but they're at that sort of edge. What is something you would say to them, like, about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's something around, like, I can only speak to myself, and I would ask them to, like, hear, like, listen to what I'm saying in terms of their own situation. But I really, really know that the universe is kind, is friendly,
Mm,
and I don't get to choose my desires. Like, it feels like I have desires, and the old me would have said I chose that, you know?
yeah,
I chose to
yeah.
love boondocking in nature rather than living in a campground. Like, it really feels like that was my choice. But
Mm,
where did that come from? Like,
mm,
it doesn't feel like it comes from me. Like, it just feels like I'm being lived by life, and my desires are life's way of nudging me along in the direction of my fullest, most beautiful expression.
mm,
And so when we get those nudges, when we know to do something, like, and we can feel it in our gut, in our heart, and then and then we make up all these reasons why it's not a good idea. Like, the part of us that's making up all the reasons that it's not a good idea is just this part of our brain that's trying to protect us from really bad stuff that we will probably never happen, you know?
mm,
And the only way to really, really, really know this and be able to live in the unknown and trust with all of ourselves is to actually experience it. You can't listen to this podcast or read a book or go to a class or listen to me and Barb talk about it and just be like, "Okay, I got it." You've
yeah,
gotta, like, go wear it. Go go live it. Like, take the, quote, "chance." Like, I used to think following my knowing was, quote, "taking a chance," when my brain was like, "Oh, are you nuts?" And now I realize it's not taking a chance, like, it's just living. But
mm,
in the beginning, like, go take the chance. Go do the thing. Go be in love. Go you name it. Whatever you're being drawn to do, the only way to know this and feel it and let it sink deep into your bones to where it becomes a way of life is to have your own experience of it. And so that would be what I would share with people is even if you feel to me, there's no stages. There's no, like, little decisions and big decisions. There's just things I'm drawn to, and there's some stuff that I make up stuff about, which makes it seem like a big decision, and then some stuff, it's really clean and I don't have anything on it, and it doesn't seem like one.
Yeah.
But if you're in that space of just trying to try this, take something that seems like a small decision and just go with it.
Yeah.
And then do that over and over and over again, and then see what begins to unfold in your life. And that would be the best thing I could tell anyone.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's right. Everything that you've said, like we just engage, we follow, we see, stay open. And you're right. Sometimes those moves feel like they take a lot of courage or, bravery. And other times they just feel really natural,
Yeah.
So, obviously this book life has continued to unfold for you since, you ended the book here. And I'm curious, what is the current unfolding for you? Or are there things that you're continuing to see fall away or where life is inviting you to an edge?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I always know I'm up for learning and seeing more always, and I feel like anybody that thinks they've made it, like, there's a red
Yeah.
flag.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's
Exactly.
probably not true. So I'm continually up to seeing more, and I feel like it's not up to me to choose in the way that happens, but, I thought I was really, really good at letting go, and the last this year and especially the last few months have been, like, a deeper lesson, like
Mm.
a broader lesson, and really, truly, like, hands off the wheel, like, I can let go even more, and this is coming from a person that's thought I've been letting go and letting go and letting go for years, and it's just, like, I feel like that's something that I'll be seeing the rest of my life. That
Yeah.
and giving full permission to continually love with everything I've got,
Mm.
and the 2 of them together have been dancing pretty amazingly, and it's not all been easy, and that's the other thing is it's not all rainbows and butterflies.
Yeah.
I think in the book somewhere I say, "The tickles of your soul, they don't all feel like wonderful. Sometimes it feels like dragging a tractor tire through wet cement uphill, like, it's tough. You're like, "Oh my gosh, I know I have to fill in the blank, and this is not gonna be easy."
Yeah.
And I feel like that, in the last few months, I've had several of those things happen where I know I know the direction I wanna head in, I know where I'm being drawn, and it's taking a and I know before I even set off on the first step that this is gonna be another massive letting go. And so, yeah, I think that's the biggest piece for me right now.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. And, I've loved our conversation and so appreciate everything you've shared. And I just want to give you an opportunity as we get ready to end the conversation and the interview. Is there anything that's present for you that you haven't said you'd like to say?
I think it's just that, like, if especially if you feel stuck or like you don't want to do you don't know what to do next, is just being there, being present, and knowing that what's on the other side of whatever you're feeling right now
Yeah.
is likely things you can never imagine, no, and you already have permission to do it.
Mm.
You don't have to get permission from anyone or anything. Like, the fact that you're knowing, your tickles, your heart is nudging you in a direction, that is all the permission you ever need.
That's beautiful. Thank you
Mhm.
so much, Christy. And for everyone listening, we'll have your book, Perfect Unfolding. We'll have the link directly to that on the show notes, as well as your website where they can learn more about you. But in the book and today, I so appreciate how generously you've shared yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barb, and thanks for the invitation, and thanks for so lovingly reading my book and wanting to talk about it.
Welcome. That was an easy yes. Yeah. As always, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this podcast, it would mean a lot to us if you could take a moment to first subscribe and follow wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Hitting the follow button means you'll never miss a show. All you have to do is hit the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner or click on follow. While you're there, if you like what you're hearing, we'd appreciate you taking a moment to give us a shout out and review. Most importantly, however, if you know anyone that would benefit from this episode, please pass it along. And finally, if you'd like to learn more about my work, Interverse Academy, or upcoming events, you can check out my website at barbarapatterson.com. You'll find some great resources, classes, and videos, and a lot more. Thank you again for being here. See you next time.